Alicia, did you raise your hand? Do you want to talk or do you just saying hi? I'm going to assume you're waving to us unless you stay there, in which case we'll unmute you. Cheyenne Lyles is in the background with Be Strong Families. Cheyenne, you want to try unmuting Ingrid and seeing if she has something she wants to say? Hi, Bernadette. Welcome, Anna. Welcome, Morgan from Sheboygan. I love Morgan from Sheboygan. Hi, Kim from Peoria. And Maggie from somewhere I can't, Copperopolis, California. I never heard of that one. Okay, it's 12 o'clock. Ingrid, you're unmuted now. If you want to unmute yourself, you could say something. Otherwise, we will get started. Hi, Lori from Texas and Donna from Arizona. Great. I'm Kathy Wolf with Be Strong Families, and this is the end of week, or not the end, it's the beginning of week 21 of staying strong and positive for ourselves and our children. And today we're here with Deanne Surles from Wayne County, Michigan. That's correct, right? Or is it Ohio?
Well, yes, we're located in Wayne County, Michigan. The organization that I represent is Wayne Metro.
Yes. Oh, wait, yes. Ingrid, okay, that's fine. Just trying to open the chat. The chat is right next to the participants, usually at the bottom of the screen. So it'd be great to see you. And Deanne was here last week and gave us a great overview of the program that she works with. And this week, she's going to be focusing on family literacy and tools and activities that you can do at home to promote family literacy. So Cheyenne has launched the poll about whether you were here last week, just so that Deanne has a sense of how many repeat people we have and how many new people. And we can advance to the next slide. And I'm going to remind you about the ways to engage, which are the poll. I'm sorry. Gosh, I did eat and drink this morning, so I don't know what's going on. But there are two ways to engage. One is the chat, and you've already started using the chat, hopefully. So make sure you direct it to all panelists and attendees, unless you want to send us a private message, because people enjoy being able to see what other people are saying. And this is like something we're all doing together. So it's really nice if you're talking to people from, in the chat to each other, if you're asking Deanne questions, if you're responding to questions that Deanne asks, all of that stuff, it's great if everybody can see it. The second way is to raise your hand. And if you raise your hand, Cheyenne will unmute you, and then you'll need to unmute yourself. Most of the time, though, when people, unless we say we want people to talk instead of write in the chat, most of the time when people raise their hand, it's a mistake. So we're going to ask you to, in the chat, we'll ask you if you intend to raise your hand. If you do, there's no problem unmuting you, but we just don't want to burn the time, embarrassing people. So anyway, the next thing, which many people are already on to, is the agreements. And whenever Be Strong Families does anything, we have agreements just to keep the place safe and in recognition that we're all in this together and we're all creating the learning environment that is going to assist us all with unobstructed learning. So if you would be here now and agree to the agreements in the chat, like our regular are doing, then we can get started. And just so you know, Deanne, about 70% of the people are new this time, and about were here last week. So
okay,
let's move to the next slide and take it away. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Kathy. I truly appreciate it. I'm so glad to be here again. We had such a great time last week. So I'm looking forward to another lively opportunity and discussion this week as well, to talk about one of my favorite subjects, which is family literacy. But since we have 70% of our guests today who were not here last week, I do want to just introduce myself and just say a word or two briefly about the agency for which I work and our program. So again, my name is Deanne Surles. I am in Detroit, Michigan right now. It is pretty hot today. So, even though we enjoy summer, we only have like 2.5 to 3 months of true summertime, we still don't like it to get too hot. But the last couple of days have been kind of steamy for us. But again, I'm going to enjoy it because in October it'll be cold again, probably. But I have 20 years of experience in education. I've been working for Wayne Metropolitan Community Action Agency for the past 6 years. And we are a community action agency that was founded in 1971, and I'll say more about that in just a second. I am certified in English as a second language. I love reading. I love nature, love being outdoors, and I am a wife and mother of two. My daughters are now 11 and 14, 11 and 15. Wow, I have high schoolers, which is amazing when I think about that. Next slide. So I just wanted to just briefly share. Again, I am with Wayne Metropolitan Community Action Agency, where our mission is to empower people and communities to be strong, healthy, and thriving. And so Wayne Metro was founded in 1971. We have over 60 programs, well over 60 programs, ranging from financial literacy, Head Start, my program, of course, which is the LEAPS Family Literacy. We have utility assistance programs. We have programs to help people avoid foreclosure on their homes. We have home buying programs and just a plethora of other services that we provide to our community that anyone in our county, Wayne, County of Wayne, can take advantage of if they meet the criteria of those specific programs. So I enjoy what I do, and again, I'm happy to be here. The program that I oversee, or one of the programs, is LEAPS, and that is Learning, Excelling, and Parenting Successfully. It is a family literacy program. I know last week, Kathy, we asked how many people have been familiar with family literacy. So I would be interested to know how many who are on the call today are familiar with family literacy or family literacy programming or have their own family literacy programs. So we can add,
I
those
don't,
of you can
I think,
indicate in the chat.
Cheyenne, does that poll still exist, or should we just do the chat? Use the chat. Okay, so if you do now or have done, or provided family literacy services and or program, or worked in a family literacy program, just type 1 in the chat.
Mm-hmm.
Just type the number 1 if you provide family, if you have provided or are currently providing family literacy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that'd be great. I would really love to know how many people are familiar with family literacy programming. Well, and as people are indicating that in the chat, again, our program started in 2001 as an Even Start program, which is no longer in existence. And so our program began in Hamtramck, Michigan, which interestingly is a city that is literally inside of the city of Detroit. So we have a city within a city. And that's where our program began. And we saw that there was a great need for literacy, immersion, citizenship services. There was a great need for employability programming, just a lot of things that community needed. And, needs were being unmet at that time. So our program started then, and it's still flourishing even today. And so,
So I would say
for
about
those of you who are familiar with family literacy, you know the importance of being able to provide those services on site for vulnerable communities.
great. So
Kathy?
I think about 14 of the 52 people on currently
Okay,
say that they have provided them or they have them at their center or they're familiar with them. But
that's awesome.
do you want to talk just in general for the people who didn't respond about what family literacy really is?
Absolutely. Absolutely. What is family literacy? So, just the short and sweet of it is the way in which a family interacts with literacy materials. So, books, songs, word games, writing, speaking and listening, puzzles, all of those are inclusive of family literacy. It is not the exhaustive list, right? But it pretty much is the gist, the essence of what family literacy is. And it's not just simply you giving your child a book or you telling your child to go play some word games or telling your child to go complete a puzzle, but it's actually when families work together with their children with these materials, okay, to that vein. So it's not just go read a book. No, it is I'm reading a book with you or you read a book, to me. So it's really about a multi-generational approach to literacy and engagement. And the reason why I wanted to specifically mention that word multi-generational, sometimes those who are familiar with family literacy may say they've heard the term the two-generational approach. Well, what we also know is that, and there's nothing wrong with that, but what we also know is um, today you have grandparents who are extremely involved in their children's lives and even in the raising of children and multiple generations living in one household. Even in my household, my children love going to their grandma's house. I mean, it's almost every day they want to go over there. My mother has no problem with them coming over. And so they spend a great deal amount of time with her and they interacting and having conversations. So, I mean, and even, reading and things of that nature. So we don't want to just limit it to just parents and child, even though throughout this presentation you will see parent and child quite a bit because it's just a default language that I use. But really, it is multi-generational, right? It really encompasses more than just the parent. It could include grandparents, even great grandparents, right? Aunts and uncles. So it's a family experience.
I have two questions. You're talking about family literacy. Are you talking about the literacy of the parents or of the adults and the children? And are you talking about English in what language? And are you talking about verbal and written or only written? Like, what's the universe that we're in?
Yep, we're talking about written, verbal, writing. All of that is encompassed. So it's not just about reading, right? It's about speaking and listening as well. Because there's a phrase that says talking is teaching, and that's true. So all of that encompasses literacy. That's what I'm referring to.
Is it in English that you're primarily working, like literacy in English, or?
Yeah, for the most part, because even our English as a second language class, we do our programming in English.
Okay.
With those
The
families.
first question was, is it literacy for the parents or the adults as well as the children, or is the premise that the parents are helping their children become more literate?
It's both. It includes both.
Okay.
It includes both. Yes, it includes both. But that's a unique aspect of our program. As a matter of fact, Cheyenne, if you can go to the family literacy program model slide, you will be able to see, keep going, family literacy program model. Yep, right here. So if you look at that, at that model here, you see where it says family literacy is in the middle, right? You have child success at the top, and then you have adult ed classes, Pact, which I'll get into in just a moment, Pact time, and then family class. So when we talk about family literacy through our program, it is not just a family literacy night. A lot of people may be familiar with schools, for example, that have family literacy nights where people, where families can come, and they may have like various stations where they can do various literacy activities or receive free books and things of that nature. Nothing wrong with that. Those are great. But our family literacy program model is a comprehensive program where parents come to our center. They receive adult education classes, whether it's English as a second language or GED courses. They also receive parent education or family education type programming as well. Their children are also on site receiving Head Start services. And then there is an opportunity where that's where the PACT comes in, parent and child. PACT stands for parent and child together. So then there's also that opportunity for that parent and child together time where parents can be engaged with their children and learn various literacy strategies and tools and resources to utilize with their children, not only in their children's classroom, but also at home. So hopefully that is making it a little bit clearer of what I'm referring to.
Yep.
If you move on to Cheyenne, go down to pack time for a second. The next slide. Yep. So with Pact, I want to spend just a couple of minutes talking about Pact. I think this is very important. Again, it's parent and child together time. So the reason why we emphasize that is a very significant component of our program. Pact time supports and strengthens emotional bonds. It's driven by the interest of the children. There's a strong emphasis on playing and learning together, and parents learn from each other. Okay. So one of the things that we often tell parents is, it's so important to read with your children at home. And, we give parents oftentimes a lot of books and these backpacks and say, have a great time working with your children at home. But sometimes we underestimate that it's not just that easy. You know what I mean? So it's not just necessarily a natural thing, for parents. It doesn't mean it has to be some type of long formulaic process or you need to have some specific educational background. As a matter of fact, we emphasize the fact that for our parents, even if they have concerns about their own literacy levels, there are still activities, which we'll get into in a moment, activities and resources that you can use at home at low cost that you can do with your children. And so you don't have to be intimidated, right? But the reason why we have PACT is that we are offering that support for parents, and sometimes they just need some additional ideas to support what they may already know or be able to do. We absolutely believe that parents are their children's best first teachers, right? So let me give you an example of how we can support parents through this parent and child together time. We give our months themes, for example. So let's just say the month of November, our theme would be thankful, okay? Or the month of November theme could be family stories, right? I think you all had a webinar not too long ago about family storytelling. Is that correct, Kathy?
Aisha, Denise Boston, in March, one of the first couple of weeks. She's a board member of ours, and she did a
Okay.
family storytelling, and this time is a good time to create stories and share stories.
Absolutely. Yeah. So let's just go with that theme, for example, of just like family family stories, right? So you could have activities throughout the week where, or an opportunity, I should say, throughout the week where parents during that family class time that I showed in the diagram, during that specific time, parents can have something modeled that they can do at home with their kids or in the classroom. For example, let's just say we want to, for family stories, we want to do a family tree. So I don't know if everybody can see this here. Can you all see this?
Not really.
Can you
Now we
see? It's
can, a little bit
now.
more.
Okay, so it's just a tree that I drew. You know, I am not a good artist by any stretch of the imagination, but I just drew this tree, right? And so I didn't add any names yet, but a parent can just draw this tree. Um, I colored it in, but this is an activity that a child can do. They can just do the coloring part of it, but then you can start talking about your family while you're adding those names there. Okay, and use this as a foundation, if you will, for your family stories or your family storytelling time. Okay. Another thing that you can do, let's just say if you wanted to use the theme of being thankful, you could do something where you create a thankful journal with your children. So again, it doesn't cost a lot of money, just some paper that you put staple together, and make a few pages. And for a week, you can do a month, but let's just say even for a week, you can together write at least one thing that you're thankful for and talk about why that's important. Does that make sense, Kathy?
Yeah, that's great. And
Yeah,
it could also be an art project too. Like,
absolutely.
I like the coloring and, and also the words. And I could see with the family tree where you'd say, this your great grandmother's name was Josephine. And let me tell
Yes,
you about Josephine. And you could get to, you know, just
absolutely.
what Denise was saying is that the family storytelling, it doesn't have to be like a lot. It could be just like one sentence, like my great grandmother traveled around the world. And that's incredible
Mm-hmm.
because I never knew her, but
Right.
I know of her. I have one little object that got passed down to me, and supposedly she got
Yes.
it from Tibet. I don't know her. I've never really seen a picture of her. It must be my great grandmother. But I'm like intrigued by the
Mm-hmm.
idea that somehow, as a woman way back in the day, she got to Tibet. Like, so. I mean,
Right.
that's just example. That's a tiny family story, but
Right.
learn a lot about it.
Absolutely. And I'm gonna tell you, my grandmother used to tell us stories all of the time, all of the time. And so that's why even now I know so much about our family's heritage in Georgia because my grandmother shared those stories all of the time. Right. And so you learn so much, not just about your family, but about the culture, about how they spent their days, about their traditions. You learn so much. And is talking is teaching. So you're having conversation, your children are learning new words, but they can also write these stories down, or even use, again, you mentioned the art, draw pictures that represent the stories that they are hearing. Okay. And that's all encompassed in just 1 month. So
So
just think about what you can do for the rest of the year. Yes.
we have a question in the chat. I think people are, even though we're trying to broaden the literacy in the notion of literacy, the question is, do you have on your website a book list? So the question is, I think for children of different ages, books that you recommend, or how do you find books that you recommend?
Oh, you know what? I don't think we have a current list up there right now, but I can make sure that I recommend some books by the end of the week. So yeah, absolutely. I'll make sure that's there for us, for you all. Absolutely. Was that the only question, Kathy? Anybody else had anything before I move on?
No, Morgan said he was wondering about the definition of family literacy and um,
Yep, again, it's just the way in which a family interacts with literacy.
I mean, when I asked the questions, he just said that he was interested in those questions too. At the beginning, when I
Oh,
was
okay.
English, is it the whole family or is it just the children and what kinds of things? Yeah,
Our idea is that the whole family is involved and engaged. Yes.
he just didn't know if it was English or she. I don't know if Morgan's a he or she, so I'm sorry.
Okay.
I didn't know if it was
Okay.
English specific, they're saying. And then
Okay.
it says sometimes coaching is needed for blended and adopted families. You can still share stories, but be ready to address emotions. And Morgan, I'm a lady. Laugh. Okay, Morgan. I was thinking you were anyway.
Yes, that's good. That's good. Thank you. Thank you for that.
I mean, that's where we remember to, ask about pronouns.
That's right. That's right. Thank you so much. So before we move on into building literacy in the home, I just wanted us to share just a couple of things. What we know about literacy and success. So we know that early literacy success likely leads to success in other academic areas. We also know that one of the greatest indicators of children's success is literacy level of their parents. And we also know that early literacy involves language and literacy. Early literacy involves language and literacy in terms of reading, right? So, and words, printed words. So we want to make sure that people understand that again, literacy involves the intertwining, if you will, of language, words that you speak, and then also with print. All right.
Yeah, so
So,
Margaret had something in the chat, which I think is really important. I think because I encountered this. I have an adoptive son. I'm an adoptive mother, and sometimes some of those the assumptions of family tree activities or bring your immigrant stories like there's kind of like sometimes in school teachers or we inadvertently ask questions or ask for materials that are triggering like my son couldn't bring a baby picture. We adopted him when he was 8 years old, so there wasn't any way he could bring a baby picture to school, so
right.
people, so I think the whole thing is
What?
just coaching, like to remember that not all families, that families are going to interact differently. But Margaret
Absolutely.
said, you can still share stories, but be ready to address emotions. And also, as an adoptive mom, to know as much as you can about your child's history is important. I mean,
Absolutely.
when we were adopting, that was something that thankfully we had we went to some education courses, like little classes that we had to go to in order to adopt. They were like, we adopted internationally. So you're your child's third best option. Best option would be if they could stay with their parents. Second is like they could stay in their country with relatives. You're their third best option, but you're the only option they have right now. So
Yeah.
that humility about that, and also to recognize that we are all different.
Absolutely. And you know what? And to that point, I guess it is important for me to mention our families, when they come and enroll in our program, our staff really know who they're bringing in. So we are aware of, certain aspects of families because that's a part of the process of enrolling. So that we are sensitive to certain things, you know what I'm saying? So that's a part of that relationship building that we do as a part of our program as well.
So you like if you would know about child welfare system involvement, or you would know if
yes.
this is you'd know about those kinds of issues, and we'd be careful about the kinds of activities.
Right. We have that benefit that we would do that with our program. Now, but that point is a valid point because some people may have more community-based. What I mean by community-based is anybody can come to a session. Ours is not like that. We have enrolled families who participate. Does that make sense, Kathy? So it's not just, we're doing a session and just anyone is coming. It's a cohort group, so we know who is coming in as a part of our session or a part of our programming.
Great.
So building literacy in the home. One, it requires no special skills or training. It should be about having fun, or fun should definitely be a part of it. And it promotes enjoyable interactions between adult and child. All right. So again, I mentioned playing together earlier, and I just think that it's important to reiterate that point. There's nothing wrong with play. Play can be very educational. I can't believe that you have some schools that just absolutely refuse to let children have recess, for example. I just think that is just ridiculous. But you can definitely learn a lot while you are in play.
Yeah, webinar on that too. Dan Douglas and Rachel Ciccarella did something on play as children's learning. They're early childhood professionals, and that's a good one.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Shania, you can go to the next slide. Practical activities and ideas. Oh, you are already there. Okay. So what we like to do is to support our families with little to no cost activities and ideas that they can do at home. Activities that spark children's interest. Again, our family literacy or pack time activities should be those that are child driven, or they're interest driven, not just what a bunch of adults think might be fun. Of course we have to provide guidance, but really what are children interested in. Activities that can be done anywhere. We encourage establishing story times. And we, as I mentioned before, we also incorporate monthly themes into our activities. So I'm going to share some activities that parents can do at home that are at no cost. It doesn't require really going out getting a whole lot of extra materials, but I would like some of our guests to share some things in the chat, share some things that they do with their families, or share some ideas that parents can utilize to increase or support literacy in their homes.
So it's like, and I think you could do it if you're a parent and you've promoted literacy with your child. I mean, I think you can put that in there too. It doesn't have to
Absolutely.
be, right? Like, so I'm thinking of, reading bedtime stories is a literacy activity. I know when my son, he was 8 years old when he came here, but he only knew a very little bit of English, and he watched a lot of television. He said, television, it has everything. But we put little cards around with the name of the thing, like this is a chair, this is a table, like just so he would see the letters and the words. My little sister reminded me that I'm the one that taught her to read, and she's 8 years younger than I, so I was 14 when she was in first grade, and she came home from school like very demoralized because she wasn't learning how to read, and they were teaching sight reading. So I taught her phonics because that was the way I learned to read. I was like, Amy, I can give you some tools and some power. We had a little corner in her bedroom that was like the reading corner, and we would go in and like do phonics together. And Morgan says, my 3-year-old and I read a book before bedtime, and we sing songs together daily. And Deborah says, making stories together, playing word games while driving, such as rhyming words or finding words on signs as we work through the alphabet. Oh, that driving game where you say, like, you have to find something with an A? Like,
yes,
something with an A? We did that all the time when I was a kid. And Make books and themes to build vocabulary. Margaret said to build vocabulary, such as clipped colored construction paper and put pics from ads on pages of the foods they like and add the name and color to it. They can take it with them.
Mm-hmm.
To always need to be relevant to them. And Lori says for Grandparents' Day, the first Sunday in September, please interview their grandparents to learn their stories. For my daughter who has special needs but loves to read, we watch bedtime stories online and read by different actors. And
Okay.
we supply 6 free books a year to over 1,200 children and families who receive home visiting services, i.e. Head Start, Healthy Families, etc. Also refer to local libraries and support 1,000 books before kindergarten and over 80 red bookshelves with gently used books in spaces families visit and low-income neighborhoods. And Deborah says we
Yeah.
read from chapter books while your child draws a picture of what they hear. You know what else I did? I wrote like, okay, so I knew that my son was getting a lot of negative messages from because he didn't have, like, he was very in touch with when he was 8, 9 years old, what he didn't have, right? What he didn't have,
Mm-hmm.
the other children had. And I wanted him to think of himself like a superhero and realize all the resilience he had from coming from a totally different
Mm-hmm.
country, and speaking a totally different language and learning a whole different system. Anyway, I started writing this fantasy book. It was like in chapter one, and the hero was like an 8-year-old little boy. And I would like write two, like maybe a page, right, as a chapter. And he would sit on my lap at
Okay.
night and I would read it to him. And then he would edit it. Like he would tell me, oh no, that shouldn't happen. This should happen. So we were
Oh
actually
wow.
writing a book together.
Okay.
So,
Awesome. Awesome. We have some more
yeah,
suggestions too, Kathy.
now, Margaret says building conversation, the leaps of logic game where adult poses open-ended question and child responds using their logic, whether it's right or wrong, encourage their thought process, i.e. how do the clouds stay up in the sky? Well, I love that
Mm,
question.
I like that. Yes.
Act out the book with the child, read in the tub while eating and bedtime. And Lori says, love that idea, Kathy. I'm stealing it. You're totally welcome.
Yes.
Because it was like a
Yes.
bonding time and he really felt like his words were, I mean, he was, his ideas were important about how the narrative could progress. And
Right.
my main character my main character had a different name than he had in it than his name because I didn't want it to be like exactly about him. And he said to me, can you put me in the book? So we made a character with his name too. Anyway.
Oh wow. Yeah, that's great. All of those are great. One of the things that I like to do with what I used to do with my children, as a matter of fact, I still do with the younger of my two children, because someone mentioned, who was it who mentioned the Grandparents' Day? I can't remember who it was in the chat,
Oh,
about Grandparents' Day in September. But one of the things that we have been doing, especially right now during COVID, is creating greeting cards to send to senior buildings. And so, for instance, again, I am not a drawer by any stretch of the imagination. But if you can see, I just created, like, a card, it just drew some flowers on it. It's no words yet in it at all, but this is something that the children can write something in it, or to have the children draw, just an activity that's something where they're helping to make someone's life better, or bring some joy to someone, but they are also, again, able to use words, right? I like your idea, Kathy, about the words, the index cards. That's what I did with my children. I put index cards everywhere. So, wall, had it on the wall, had the word for chair, floor, couch. I just had all these little index cards everywhere, all over my house for my children. So just to get them familiar with certain words. This is kind of like a word family flower. So it might be looking backwards to those of you who are watching. But
oh,
again, this is just things that you can just draw on your own. It doesn't cost you anything. If you have some crayons or a colored pencil and just some paper lying around where you can
One
write
second.
even that.
Hold it still
Mhm.
for a second. So you've got Anne in the middle, and then the family is like man, van, ran, tan, fan.
Correct.
Okay, pan. Yeah,
Yes.
that's awesome.
Yep.
I
Yep.
was thinking
And so,
the conversation one where Margaret was talking about building conversation. And one thing I remember,
yes.
I wonder if this counts as literacy. I think it does, but one of the things my mother did with us, she would do these like values clarification stories. She would do let's pretend. And she would say, like, let's pretend you're walking down the street and you see a wallet, I mean, what do you do? You know,
Yes.
and there were right answers and wrong answers in her, but it was like
Right.
where we were like we were given scenarios and then fill in the blanks. Mad libs also. Do you ever
Yes.
the Mad libs? They
Yes,
were
absolutely.
fun. Like where you just say, okay, we need a noun, and then you read it and it's a funny story. And Kathy,
Yes, yes.
so many great ideas. I always read to my kids at bedtime, and now my daughter reads to my grandkids at bedtime every night. Since moving in here, I read with the kids in early morning before work. Many literacy activities throughout the day. My grandson is learning to sound things out and will run over the refrigerator to spell out words with the magnetic letters. Oh yeah, the magnetic letters,
Yes.
and actually the word poetry ones too, like the words that you can put together to make poetry.
Yeah. Absolutely. And it's a great. And
Yes,
my children are, of course, we had the refrigerator letters too. Absolutely.
Deborah says lots of laughter from Mad Libs. Yep.
Yes. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. So, we talked about the word family flower, right? So this one, just drew it. The children can color it in or whatever, but a little take on that is to have one that you draw, right? And then the children have to find the words and put those on the
Wow,
flower. Like,
that's
so I
cool.
have the flower petals, and then I even have the leaves
Nice.
down here. Okay. Again, I am nowhere near an artist. So, that's something that if you can draw a little bit of something, you can do that. And another thing, parents and caregivers and individuals who work with families, one thing we have to remember is that it doesn't take much for children. These children, the fact that you are engaging with them and spending time with them, they are not going to be critiquing how good your picture look, really. You know what I'm saying? Not at the younger ages anyway. I think about how my children were so intrigued about something as simple as a cardboard box. How many of you all have had the cardboard box where your children just love sitting in this box, like, and will be in there all day playing, and you're like, you buy all of these toys, all of this stuff around the house, and all they want to do is be in a box. It is unbelievable sometimes to see what they can come up with just in a box, right?
Yes, and Janine says yes,
So
and to make a train out of it. Laughing out loud. I had a question though, like family literacy activities. When you say like, are they only for little kids, or can you?
no,
I mean, is it any age child you can encourage the literacy?
absolutely, absolutely. Our program emphasizes 0 to 8, right? So kind of like through the third grade, that's our heavy emphasis. But no, we all know, everyone who is watching right now also knows that your literacy interactions in the home and family engagement does not stop at the third grade. So it continues throughout life. K through 0 to 8 is pretty much when you all have heard the phrase when they're learning to read, and then beyond that, they are reading to learn. So everybody's pretty much probably familiar with that. I
One,
wanted to show you all something.
I'm thinking also like the game, right? Like DM, like games like Scrabble, or games
Yes.
like Boggle, or games like what are some other word games? Hangman, like just when when you're
Yep.
playing the like there's a lot of different word games. In my family, that was something that happened on vacations too. And you can get some pretty intense boggles. Now, scattergories, Deborah says,
Oh yes.
Pictionary, you know.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All of those are important. Puzzles, just plain puzzles, you know, can be helpful as well. I wanted to show you all this bucket. Okay. It's a little bucket, a little plastic bucket you can get from the um, Dollar Tree. So some people may have like a clear box that they may use, but basically this bucket is just pretty much like, remember I said earlier in the conversation about literacy activities that can pretty much be done anywhere, right? So if you know you're going somewhere, maybe to a doctor's appointment or to visit a family friend or something, you know, their kids can take this bucket. In the bucket, they can, you know, keep a book. I have construction paper. You know, you can do just about anything with construction paper. Um, Crayons. Keep a box of crayons in it. These little silly stringy things. You know, they can figure out something to do with these these little strings. Um, I have a bag in here with just yarn and some feathers, and the kids can do anything with these items. Of course, a pair of little kid scissors, and again, um, index cards to make. Um, I'm drawing a blank right now, but you know what I mean. The flashcards with the index cards, and so again, that's just things, items that my daughter would be interested in. But whatever your children are interested in, you can have in. Again, this is just a bucket that I just got from the Dollar Tree that costs nothing, and they can keep it in the car, take it with us places. Or you can have like one of those shoe boxes. You know what I'm talking about, Kathy, the shoe boxes with the top on it. And it can be transported. But children are very imaginative and they can find fun in just about anything. I'm sure you all have seen, I'm sorry, I'm going off of the screen for a second, but like the whiteboards, they sell these at the Dollar Tree whiteboards and, you know, the dry erase markers. You can keep this handy and, you know, have them draw words that they see or you know, try to play a game where they can identify the most words that they can. So absolutely anything that can spark their interest, and make sure that you highlight the fact that nothing is dumb, right? You know, so you don't have to have some lofty degrees in order to help your children with literacy.
Tammy says my
Kathy?
kids always like to bring their felt boards to appointments, and I've since started making sets to give to clients for their children to do the same. They make up
Mm-hmm.
stories to go with the pictures they create, and some have been for colors, numbers, sorting, etc. Linda says she loves the bucket with the goodies. Um, and Tammy said earlier, sometimes we do book discussion among the adults in the family. We used to
That's
play a
good.
game when we were like, I can't remember how old we were, but when we did a lot of car trips, and there was like a geography game
Mm-hmm.
where you said like you had like if I said a place, like we do cities, and say I said Bismarck, North, which is in North Dakota, and it ends with a K, then somebody else would have to say a city that starts with a K, and we would go like
Oh,
that, like Kansas City, and then the next person would have to do a Y, like Yuba City, like that.
oh wow.
We did
Yeah, that's
those
cool.
games in the car.
That's cool. That's cool. Um, I wanted to, oh, someone said, Morgan, did you see Morgan's comment, Kathy, about the drive-in movie theater in the cardboard box?
The cardboard box was becoming a train, and yes.
Absolutely, absolutely. And book book buffets are fun, where you can have different books kind of like set up like a buffet with food, but instead it's books. And so the children can go around the table and sample a little bit of whatever book sparks their interest, you know? Mm-hmm.
Well, this is
Absolutely.
awesome. And Ingrid says, "Oh my God, so many ideas for the new teachers in dual language."
Absolutely.
I
Absolutely.
work as a home
Well, I
Head Start
I
style.
wanted to show you all. Cheyenne, go back just for 1 second to the resource page. Because I wanted to make sure that all of those our visitors today, our guests, are familiar with these organizations, because there is a lot of information on these various websites. For the National Center for Families Learning, they have a conference every year, the National Families Learning Conference. Because of COVID, the conference for this year was postponed till 2021. But definitely go to familieslearning.org to learn more about family literacy programming. Also, the Barbara Bush Foundation for Family Literacy. As a matter of fact, our program, um, uh, after Even Start, received funding from the Barbara Bush Foundation. Also, Partnership for Families, Raising a Reader, and Urban Institute are all great resources for family literacy ideas and even research if individuals are interested to find out more research, and even to learn more about how they may be able to incorporate Pact time or other elements of family literacy into their programming.
Margaret says she was a
So
home
that's
visitor, um, delivering service for Raising a Reader, and she wrapped in child development and positive parenting into literacy opportunities.
absolutely, absolutely. That's good. That's good.
All right, so next slide, Cheyenne. I think it's just questions and comments. Do we have any questions
Mhm.
for Deanne or for each other? Anything that you were hoping to get from today that you haven't yet gotten? So now would be a good time to ask the question, put it out there.
Absolutely, absolutely. Is there anyone who is viewing us from Kentucky or Texas, or anyone else here from Michigan? Because I know, and I'm mentioning that just because I know that Kentucky has a lot of family literacy programs there, as well as Virginia and Texas. So just curious to know if anyone who said they were familiar are from any of those states.
I'm sharing this with something in the Q&A, which is a resource, Books in Homes USA, nonprofit dedicated to supporting children in under-resourced communities in literacy and beyond.
Okay.
Okay, and Lori
All
said,
right.
do you have any suggestions to help families include reading in their home, especially those who have language barriers? I'm from Texas. Lisa said,
Mm-hmm.
program.
Yeah. And I'm familiar with the hippie program, Alicia. I believe they presented at the Families Learning Conference in the past. So for Lori, in terms of suggestions for how to include reading in the home, I think the one thing is to incorporate, just to make sure you have access to books. So you can't really utilize or learn what you don't have. So helping those families build libraries in their home is one step. Um, uh, Something else that I didn't mention is the usefulness of picture books, right? So even if your language is not what you would like for it to be, or your literacy level is not what you would like for it to be, you can use picture books and use that as a way to share stories with your children, or have children make up stories just based upon the pictures that they see. One of the important elements of reading is knowing something simple, Kathy, as how to read from left to right, right? So knowing, how to flip the pages, knowing, what's the significance of the front cover and of the back cover, things you can do a lot with just looking at the cover of a book. You know what I'm saying? And looking at pictures.
So there's two other ideas. Linda says that they've been teaching families about brain development and how important the interaction of reading with children is, serve and return. So I think this is to Lori, is making the case for reading is part of, in addition to having the materials, it's part of why it's important, and emphasizing why it's
Yes.
important, and that gives parents the motivation or the incentive to be able to offer it. Firstbook.org is a great resource for organizations. They
Yes,
have
it is.
digital books as well as physical books for only the cost of postage. And I just wanted to mention that in addition to picture books, and in addition to other kinds of, I mean, we always, my son is from Ethiopia, so Amharic was his first language, and he actually was like in first grade in Ethiopia, so he read in Amharic when he came. So we got some Amharic children's books so that he could see
Okay.
his language. And I think for parents who are Spanish speaking or any other primary language, getting books in their language and in their first language is also promoting literacy, and the skills you're
Absolutely.
about, like in terms of, because he learned to read much faster because he already had the concept of letters being formed into words, being formed into sentences in his own language.
Mm-hmm.
I think that just for families, it's really important to honor the languages that they speak and to have materials in those languages so that it's not all about English, especially for families that English isn't their first language.
I agree with that 100%, Kathy. Yes, you definitely want to honor the home language. So even in our ESL classes, they're learning how to speak English, but that doesn't mean that we are disregarding their home language. So that's an excellent point,
What I'm
and we
saying,
want to make sure that we provide the materials in their language.
yeah.
Yes.
So if you have a little child who's 2 or 3 years old, and you're learning an ESL class learning English, the bedtime stories that you read should be in Spanish. If that's your native language, like giving, that's still promoting literacy. It's still promoting
Absolutely.
reading. It's still promoting, literacy skills. So I think that that's really important. And Margaret says chocolate
Absolutely.
includes information about STEM language, which is so influential in learning how to learn as well.
Mhm.
In dual, and Ingrid says in dual they have 50% in English and 50% in Spanish, K to 2. Yeah, I was just thinking I wouldn't want someone's insecurity or like lack of fluency or lack of confidence in one language to dissuade them from developing literacy in the language that they're most comfortable in the language that they
Absolutely.
laugh in and joke in. So uh,
Absolutely.
we're getting close to the end, Deanne. I want to thank you so much for your.
Oh, thank
I
you.
know that it was really, and thank everybody in the chat, for contributing and participating and putting your ideas out there. Cheyenne, we have to get through the slides real quick. So that's Deanne. Yes. Want to invite you all to cafes. If you haven't ever been to a cafe, these are free. They're online. You can register on our website, and they're about the ones we're offering once a month through December are about the nexus between, it's like as parents navigating this landscape of often injustice and complicated issues. So please come to a cafe. Next slide, Chan. Also, another invitation opportunity. This Friday is the deadline for discounted early bird registration. If you use our discount code BSF, you will get a cheaper rate. And the conference is going to be really amazing. Yesterday's webinar presenters from the Center for Study of Social Policy are going to be doing a version of that same workshop, but with more in-depth information. We have been involved in developing the equity track. So there's just a lot of great family support, family information. So come to that and register by Friday. And then I guess I want to just say that this week, tomorrow, Nami will be, Alejandra Valdez will be here tomorrow with Ending the Silence, which is about reducing stigma of mental illness. Sandy Baba, who's a BSF board member, is going to be here Thursday for a really fun one called Cooking with Kids During COVID. And she's going to, at least the last time I talked to her, she was talking about using the same several ingredients, but making them taste totally different in different recipes, and also about building bonds and family relationships through cooking. And that's also a literacy thing too, Deanne, when I think about it, cooking with
Yes,
kids,
it is.
like
Yes.
if especially if
Yes.
you're eating recipes, and if you're thinking about, and then Friday, a big treat, which is Angela O is going to be here. Um, and she's one of the co-founders and major teacher at Go Compassion. She's also quite a famous civil rights attorney and activist over. She's had a very long career and a wonderful person. So come on Friday, and then we're next week we're kicking off 2 weeks of back to school, and I want to say that because we're starting off on the Mondays which with conversation. And Sarita Sashington and I are going to be like holding space for a conversation like the one we've had here, but focused on back to school. What do people know? What are they? How are they preparing? What are you thinking about? What are the emotions about it? So please come on Monday, and we're going to talk about making back to school work for children and families. And then we have a rich set of other presenters as well, which you'll hear about later this week. So thank you everybody for coming. Make sure you amplify what you want to see in your world. More perfect union. How do we hashtag amplify literacy, hashtag amplify bonding with our kids, hashtag amplify love and compassion and gratitude, thankfulness, hashtag amplify thankfulness. And if you, Deanne's here doing her webinar because she stepped up when we invited. We sent out anybody who'd like to do a presentation for us, please let us know. And Deanne said she would. So if you or one of your colleagues would like to host a webinar with us, just email me. And thank you so much, everybody, for being here. Hope we will see you tomorrow or sometime in the future. And Deanne, thank you. This was just lovely, and
Thank you.
appreciate you and appreciate this presentation. So thank you very
Thank
much.
you so much, Kathy and Cheyenne.
Yes, and Tammy says hashtag amplify escape to new worlds with books. Nice. Awesome. So fill out the
Awesome.
poll before you leave, please, and we will see you in the future.
All right. All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.